thank Phil Lancaster for microphone movie sound, which is good. Yeah. Wow. See, those of you who just have to read all by yourselves, you're going to feel naked up here now, aren't you? Okay, next. Spike Gillespie is a critically acclaimed author of many books and magazine articles. Austin Chronicle readers voted her best memoirist in Austin in 2016 and 17. She writes the blogs emotionalrapesurvivor.com and meditationkicksass.com. Her work has appeared in the New York Times Magazine, the New York Times, Washington Post, Real Simple, GQ, Esquire, Elle, Smithsonian National Geographic, Traveler.
Oh, that's enough.
That's enough, all right. She was once voted best author in Austin by the Chronicle. She lives on a ranch just outside of Austin with horses, cows, chickens, and dogs. Spike Gillespie.
I'm sorry, that was very rude of me, but I think that's the bio from the website, right? It seems shorter on the page. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. It's so fun to get all these opportunities to read lately. I've got this new book, The Tao of Bob, and I'm going to read a little section from it in a minute. But first I'm just going to... Oh, come on, Spike, you can do this. Oh, and we're live streaming. Hi, everybody in Facebook land. This is actually just half of a blog post from emotionalrapesurvivor.com, which is also called the Red Flag Society. And just to give a tiny little bit of background, the book, The Tao of Bob, I live at this ranch that fell into my lap, which it's a crazy story. You'll have to buy the book if you want to know the story. And when I got it, it was a meth lab in a junkyard. And I didn't know anything about ranches, but somebody said, "Do you want a ranch?" And I said, "Sure." And then just as magically, somebody said, "Would you like my 87-year-old father?" He's a farmer, and I said, "Sure." He was recovering from. He was in grief. He had lost his wife of 66 years, and he showed up at the tail end of a very abusive relationship that I was in. And so together, we rocked it pretty hard. He really helped me a lot. This piece I'm going to read, I did a little intro since our theme is home. I grew up in a small town in a weird house with 8 siblings and no doors. Basically, every time my mom got pregnant, my dad added on another room to the house with like sheetrock and used lumber and, wings and prayers and stuff. Eventually, I moved to Austin, where I spent 26 years going from apartment to house to house. I spent many years in a falling down cottage in Hyde Park. It was so falling down that I never wanted to call the landlady because I was afraid she'd kick me out or raise the rent. But the house was on such a slant, it had shifted so much that if a dog peed in the house on this side, you'd have to be mopping it up over on that side. It was great. I loved that house with all my heart. And it got knocked down and replaced with a McMansion. But anyway, eventually I moved to one of those Flintstone houses over in Cherrywood, the concrete ones, those rectangles. It was so cool. It felt like an inverted swimming pool, so I painted all the walls bright blue, like I lived in an upside-down swimming pool. That was really fun. And I thought I would spend the rest of my days in that house. Then, through a bizarre series of interconnected events, as I mentioned, a ranch fell into my lap. I had no idea how to run it or what country life would bring. I thought I would wing it. Then along came Bob, and he changed my life, and he taught me how to run the ranch properly. This story that I'm about to read illustrates just how much my life has changed courtesy of geography, and how I went from a hardcore left-wing, city-dwelling gun opponent to a shotgun-toting ranch chick. The call came in while I was at my mom's house in South Jersey, preparing to say goodbye to her and hop in the car with my son, who'd driven down from Manhattan to pick me up and take me to the city for a couple of days. The guy on the other end of the line was screaming so loud and in such a Texas drawl that at first I had no idea what the hell he was saying. Eventually, I deciphered the angry garble. He was recently out of prison and insisting my horse, Tiny, was actually his horse and he was going to take him away. I asked if he was calling from my ranch. He was. I told him to get the fuck off the property. He said my rental guest had let him in the gate, so he wasn't there illegally. I again told him to get off my property. More screaming from him. Hang up. A couple of quick calls and texts with my mortified guest to get some details, and another call with a Travis County Sheriff's deputy who, sounding right out of a movie, informed me possession really is 9/10 of the law, that the guy, let's call him Billy, is a well-known criminal who'd done time for manslaughter, and that I could and should shoot him if necessary. Then a hasty goodbye to my now very worried mother, whose hobby is reading bad news headlines about things just like this. And Henry loaded me up, pointed the car north, and started driving. The first part of that drive I spent making endless phone calls. One neighbor said he'd run down and put up a no trespassing sign and padlock the gate. My horse trainer and another horse friend agreed to try to track down a trailer big enough for Tiny to ride in and offered a place to hide him. I let my business partner know there was trouble in paradise, and finally I put my phone away and settled into one of my favorite activities, road tripping with my boy. I kept myself in the present most of the rest of the day and on through the next. This too-short holiday to see my son and some good friends in Brooklyn was not going to be wrecked by some dumbass horse thief murderer in Texas if I could help it. But then came night, the eve of my departure, back home where this bullshit awaited, and my mind drifted to possible outcomes, which is when I made the mistake of calling Billy back. I had promised him during our initial conversation that I'd meet him to discuss the matter of the horse, and I intended to make good on that promise, though I wasn't going to mention I was bringing a deputy with me. He started screaming again that this was his horse, he had pictures and paperwork, and he was going to take it, which is when I heard these words leave my mouth. If you set foot on my ranch again, I will blow your fucking brains out. I suppose threatening to kill a man makes me a lame, aspiring Buddhist. At this point, I really don't care. I am so officially over being menaced by men that I refuse to be in that position ever again. Billy told me I really shouldn't be talking like that, and furthermore, he was going to call the law. I explained to him it was the law that advised me to shoot him and gave him the name of the deputy I'd spoken to. Suffice to say, we did not get that in-person coffee date on the books. Flying back home, worry tried to knock on my mind's door, but apparently all the hard work I'd been doing in therapy, and all the meditation, and all the dog-forsaken pile of self-help books, and some alternative modality stuff is really working. I felt calm, I felt strong, I felt prepared. I did not feel like dealing with another asshole, but having no choice in the matter, I told myself deal with him I would. And while I told the deputy that it is not on my bucket list to ever shoot anyone, as I thought about what I'd said to Billy, I asked myself if I really meant it. The answer was clear. Yes, I was serious. Call it overcorrection for a lack of boundary keeping in the past, if you must. But hearing that guy scream at me recalled for me the far too many times I've been screamed at by other bullies, beginning with my father and stretching across over half a century, unfortunately punctuated by more than a few bad bully boyfriends, teachers, bosses, co-workers, and total strangers. I'm over it. I'm beyond over it. I have been shoved, hit, and raped. I've been belittled, criticized, harangued, harassed, and stalked. I am so sick of living in a world dominated by entitled white dudes. And as an aside, I have countless excellent white dude friends who do not suffer the affliction of entitlement, but of those who have abused me in my life, overwhelmingly they were EWD. Once I landed, I ran to the feed store to get some hay with the hope of using this to lure Tiny and my other horse Queenie to the back pasture. We still hadn't located a big enough trailer, but this way at least they'd be far from the front fence line. because it dawned on me that if he couldn't steal Tiny, Billy might drive by and shoot him in the head. Then I called the sheriff's office again to see about having a deputy come out to get a restraining order filed. While on this call, Billy called in. I let it go to voicemail. What happened next surprised me, and save for shit like the hidden meth and porn addictions and the rampant infidelity of my most recent ex, it usually takes a lot to surprise me. In essence, the message, delivered pleasantly and politely, went like this: Hey, yeah, this is Billy. I'm gonna do what God said. I'm gonna let you keep the horse. It was wrong for them to sell him to you. He is my horse, but I know you've been taking care of him. I'm gonna let you keep him. I called the deputy to cancel the visit, reporting that apparently God had taken care of the whole thing. Then I called Billy to talk to him. He repeated that he was gonna let me keep him, and noting that his wife has a horse, he added he knows how women are about horses. Since he toned it down, I followed suit. I explained Tiny has cancer, that I'd been paying his vet bills and was taking good care of him. Billy said that was good and added that he'd made some bad choices in life, but was trying to turn things around now. I decided to validate this statement by empathizing, sharing that I'm a recovering alcoholic and I've had my own share of hard times. Then I apologized for yelling at him, explaining that I was done being bullied and that my last boyfriend had been a bully who hit me. This gave Billy pause. He asked me to repeat myself. I did, which is when, for the second time in 15 minutes, Billy surprised me. You want me to hunt him down and kick the shit out of him? Just as sincere as I had been when I offered to splatter his gray matter across my front yard. I told him thanks, but no thanks, amused and delighted at this modern-day rural of Henry story I suddenly found myself in the middle of. Then he told me that Tiny's given name was Butterscotch. And he said maybe he could come visit him sometime. So I think maybe I found my next boyfriend. Just kidding. Y'all know I don't date married men. That was a really crazy couple of days. Oh my gosh. I should have brought I have the voicemail. Oh, but we're using the phone. You'll just have to take my word. It's called Impermanence. So the Down Bob it does kind of have an arc to it. It's more like a collection of short essays about my life with Bob and trying to learn how to live on a ranch. I'm really getting the hang of it. This is called Impermanence. In 2010, a burglar broke into my little house in Austin. I was not home when this happened, but upon arrival surveyed the mess and determined that my 3 dogs drove the intruder out before he could grab anything. Not that there was anything of financial value to take, as I fill my world with sentiment, not gold. Still, I felt violated and shaken. This led me to the decision that it was time to expand my pack, get another big dog, one that would keep intruders from entering the house at all, as my biggest, fiercest dog had recently died and the current biggest was getting old and was not intimidating enough. Upon meeting the new guard dog, my son Henry laughed at me. Dante was a large, friendly Labrador. Seems like he'd be more likely to carry shit out to the car for burglars than scare them off, he said. But I was unable to resist adopting Dante, rescuing him from an execution slated for just a day after the day I found him. As I filled out paperwork, a shelter employee volunteered caveats about the big guy, said he was a constant barker, aggressive with cats, and not housebroken. My favorite kind of guy. I was also informed that he was around 8. In reality, he rarely made a sound, was fine with the cats, never shit in the house, and according to my vet, was much younger than reported. So pleasant was his demeanor that Henry gave him a slogan, just happy to be here. And he was. As if understanding he had been spared death, he smiled and wagged constantly. A lesson I derived from life with Dante is that whatever story we come with, there exists the potential for an equal and opposite story to reveal itself. Bob and I cultivate in each other new stories, revised narratives. Just as it is possible Dante really did bark excessively and go after cats in his prior life, Bob and I each truly did experience great tribulations in ours. But as Dante showed only a sunny side once I brought him home, so does Bob. I'm working on this too, striving to focus on the present, the joy of our ranch life. A huge challenge Bob and I each faced in our recent past lives came in caring for increasingly ill partners. We processed together, commiserating over how overbearing our tasks had been. We concur it's exhausting for the person being cared for too, the indignation of enduring chronic physical pain compounded by helplessness, and the anger this helplessness in turn fosters. Both caregiver and receiver grow extremely cranky, potentially creating relationship fissures too deep to repair. Neither of us can deny how this caretaking changed the course of our life stories, but we also agree on this. The intersection of love and duty demands you take care of your loved ones no matter how rough the road gets, no matter how much they snarl and lash out. You show up, you do the best you can. This is just the way things are done. Now we take care of each other. I'd like to think that even without our respective traumas of the past couple of years, we'd be very good at this co-nurturing. But what we each went through in helping our partners, his now dead and mine fled, also gives us a greater appreciation of caring for and being cared for by each other. The words we share most frequently are these: do you need anything? Thank you. I love you. We are changing each other's stories. I note that despite my grief, the ever-tightening noose of anxiety that restricted me when I was with Peter, his explosiveness, his unpredictability, his constant needs, has loosened considerably, as I no longer must steel myself in anticipation of his never-ending, always unwarranted complaints and wildly erratic behavior. I give Bob so much credit for this quieting. There is a growing calm at the center of my storm, knowing that every day we can count on the steadiness of our routines, the rhythm of this infrastructure rendering the security that comes with the reliability of knowing what needs to be done and doing it. Some evenings I bring Dante down to Bob's room, leaving the other two rambunctious dogs in my room. Dante, ever the gentle giant, loves head pats from Bob, wagging his approval and grinning his just happy to be here grin in gratitude. Observing the two of them together, I see pure happiness. I see mutual appreciation. I see something else too, a vivid image of impermanence, which seems to be the lesson I have come to this planet to try to learn. That things and people and pets and opportunities arrive and then depart, that there is nothing I can do to prevent this. I know and hate knowing, but try to accept knowing that not too far down the road I will be left to go on without them. When the thought of Bob's departure visits me, I push it away. I imagine feeling so lost, so unable to go on without him. I then use this thought to develop true presence. I lean in on the truth and try to fashion it into something more useful. A reminder to share as much time and love with Bob and Dante as I can while I have the opportunity to do so. On my better days, when I achieve shifting from being afraid to being aware, I observe truths about myself. I am an incredibly impatient person. Outwardly, I can present as infinitely patient when teaching, when talking, when listening, when helping others. But inside, so very often my mind is racing to figure out what is next, and what is next after that, and what must I do, and then what must I do after that. This sense of urgency springs from the hypervigilance I developed to try to anticipate and save myself from my father's rage. It is the same sense of urgency that has a positive side, allowing me to get shit done in an astonishingly timely and efficient fashion. I multitask when I can, tidying the house or doing my hula hoop workout while taking business calls or listening to audiobooks. I stack errands and gigs so tightly in succession that one minor mishap might send the whole itinerary to hell. When it comes to Bob time, though, I consciously note any impatience as it arises. Never is this directly connected to him, as in, oh, I wish he would finish telling this story so I could get going, or, gee, I sure hope we wrap up this game of checkers fast so I can hide in my room. I understand my impatience is the tug of my mental to-do list, trying to convince me I don't have time to just hang out. I then recognize this as bullshit, that all of it can wait until later, and that my most precious resource, my Bob, might only be here another day, another week. The knowledge, this reminder to self, immediately brings the present moment into focus, and I settle into enjoying whatever time we have left together. Thank you.